living somewhere warm and safe, and none of what follows is happening to you. It happened a very long way from here, to somebody else, in a future so distant that the years have stopped being counted properly, and nobody can agree what the date is anymore. So let your shoulders come down into the bed. Let your jaw unclench. There is nothing in this story that needs anything from you. I am going to tell you about a ship, and the ship is black from prow to stern, and it comes to every world in the Imperium of man once every standard year. It does not come for soldiers. It does not come for grain or ore or coin, though other ships come for all of those, and the people are used to them. This one comes for a particular kind of person, and on 10,000 worlds tonight, there is somebody lying awake in the dark, listening for it, the way you are lying here now, warm and safe, and not listening for anything at all. Breathe out. We have a long way to go together, and there is no hurry at all. You are a common person on a common world. There are more than 1 million worlds in the Imperium, and yours is not one of the interesting ones. You work, you sleep, you queue. The work you do is the same on the day you die as it was on the day you started it, and your parents did something very like it, and their parents did too, back and back for longer than anyone has bothered to record. The sky over your city is the color of old iron, more or less permanently, because there are refineries along the whole northern rim, and they have been burning without a break for 1,100 years. The air tastes faintly of rust and of the incense they burn in the transit stations, which is meant to be purifying and mostly just smells sweet. There are 900 million people living in your city. You know the names of about 11 of them. This is not a sad life. It is simply the life. Everyone you have ever met is living it right alongside you, and there is a kind of warmth in that, the way there is warmth in a crowded room, even when nobody in the room is talking to you. And then, somewhere in your childhood or your 20s, or once, memorably, at 40 years old, something small happens. A cup moves on a table, and your hand is nowhere near it. A door you happen to be thinking about swings quietly shut. You know, half a second before it occurs, that the man across the transit hall is going to lose his grip on the crate he is carrying, and you are already turning to look before it starts to fall. Nothing dramatic happens. Nothing anybody else notices. There is no lightning, no voice from the ceiling, none of the things the stories promise. It is just the world leaning very slightly toward you, the way a room leans toward an open window, and it happens again a month later, and again after that, and slowly you understand that whatever this is, it is not going to stop, and it is not going to explain itself, and it has picked you. You tell nobody. You are not stupid. Nobody on your world could give you a straight account of what happens to people who are different, but everybody knows that something does, and the not knowing is worse than a rule would be. So you learn. You learn to keep your hands still and flat on the table. You learn not to guess out loud, not even when the guess would help. not even when somebody you like is about to make a mistake. You learn to be a fraction slower than you actually are, a fraction duller than you actually are, and you get extremely good at it, better than you would ever have believed. And then the strangest thing of all happens, which is that the years simply go by. 5 of them, 10. You keep your head down and nothing comes for you, and you very nearly manage to convince yourself that nothing ever will, that you got away with it, that whatever this is has decided to leave you alone. People are remarkable at this. It is possibly the thing our species does best. But every standard year, the tithe comes. Not the grain tithe, which arrives in autumn and empties the silos, and not the tithe of soldiers, which takes the young ones away and transports painted guard green, while their families cheer on the platform, because cheering is expected. The other one, the one nobody puts on a poster. Each standard year, the Imperium visits its worlds in turn and strips them of the people who can do what you can do, and carries them away across the galaxy to Holy Terra. It is a tithe like any other in the ledgers of the Administratum, recorded in the same hand, filed in the same archives, with a column for the number collected and a column for the number that arrived. The ships that come to collect it are painted black from prow to stern, with no markings and no windows, and that is not decoration. It is so that nobody has to explain them to a child. You see it arrive. Everybody does. The whole district comes out onto the walkways to watch, because there is nothing else to look at that week, and because nobody can quite help themselves. It comes down through the cloud layer without making any sound at all, which is the part that stays with people. And it is a shape with no windows and no markings, and no name on its flank, so black that the rain seems to go into it and not come out again. It settles onto the eastern landing fields on legs that unfold slowly, like something being careful. And in 900 million chests, every single heart that has ever kept a secret goes very quiet at once, all together, all across the city in the same moment. Then people go back inside and put the kettle on and talk about something else. That is also what people do. The testing takes 4 days, and it is not cruel. That is the part that nobody expects, and the part that survivors always mention first. There are no torments. There is no shouting, no accusation, nobody demanding that you confess to anything. There is a quiet room with gray walls and a plain metal table, and a man in a gray robe who has been doing this work for 40 years. He asks you to sit down. He asks you to look at a card and tell him what is printed on the other side of it. You tell him. He writes something in a ledger without any expression at all, and turns over another card and asks you again. He does this for hours. He offers you water when your voice goes. He asks after your family and listens to the answer. He has done this on 200 worlds, and he is very, very good at it. And the kindness is not a trick, which is somehow the worst thing about it. He simply sees no reason to be unkind. It would not make the ledger any more accurate. And on the 4th day, he thanks you. That is all that happens. He thanks you for your patience, and he signs the bottom of a page and presses a seal into the wax, and somebody else comes in and takes your arm, quite gently, the way you would guide someone elderly across a step. Nobody raises their voice, nobody puts a hand on a weapon, and in that moment you understand with complete and total clarity that your life has just ended in a small room with a table in it on a perfectly ordinary afternoon, and that the instrument of it was a man being polite to you. You are allowed to say goodbye. This surprises people too. They give you 1 hour and they do not stand over you while you use it. You spend it badly because everybody spends it badly, saying small, useless things to people who cannot manage to look at you and who will spend the rest of their lives rehearsing better answers. Somebody presses something into your hand to take with you. Somebody else cannot come out of the back room at all, and you decide, standing there, that you are going to forgive them for that, and you do. And then the hour is finished, and the walk out across the landing field is the last time your feet will ever touch the surface of the world you were born on. It is raining. Of course it is raining. It rains 4 days in 5 under those refineries. You remember that rain for a very long time afterwards. Out of an entire life on an entire planet, the rain on the last afternoon is the thing you keep. The shuttle goes up. There are no seats to speak of, just benches and handholds, and the acceleration presses you down into the metal in a way you have no reference for at all. Through the one narrow port, you watch your city become a pattern, then a smudge, then a faint gray stain on the flank of a landmass you have never once seen the shape of. Your whole world, all of it, everything you have ever done, resolving into a smear of cloud and ocean and a scatter of lights along a coastline. Almost nobody who lives on an Imperial world ever sees it from outside. Billions are born, live, and die without leaving the city they started in. You get about 90 seconds of it, and it is genuinely beautiful. And then the blast shutter comes down over the port with a clang, and that is the end of that, forever. And then the hold. It is bigger than any space you have ever stood inside. It is bigger than the Temple NU district, bigger than the Central Transit Hall, bigger than anything you had a category for. A cavern of black iron with a ceiling somewhere up above the reach of the lights, ribbed with structural members the size of buildings, and it is full of people. Thousands of them, sitting on benches, lying against bulkheads, standing in small knots and talking quietly. They are from worlds you have never heard named. They are wearing furs and work overalls and something that looks like ceremonial armor and rags, and one man is dressed considerably better than anyone you have ever met. Children, old women, a person who cannot be more than 16, sitting completely still and staring at the deck, and every single one of them, every one, can do what you can do. In your entire life, you had never knowingly met another. Here, there are 3,000 of them, and you are simply one more. The first thing you notice is the silence, and it takes you most of a day to work out what kind of silence it is. It is not the absence of sound. The hold is full of sound. 3,000 people breathing and shifting and murmuring, the deep organ note of the ship's plasma drives somewhere below. It is the absence of something else. The hold is wrapped in suppression fields, and inside them, the thing that lives behind your eyes simply stops, the way a sound stops when a door swings shut on it. You had not understood until this exact moment that it had ever been there. It has been with you your whole life, humming very quietly underneath everything, a pressure you never once identified because you had nothing to compare it to. And now it is gone, and you are properly alone inside your own head for the first time since you were a small child. And the loneliness of that is so total and so strange that you sit down on the deck plating and cannot get up again for some time. There is food. That always surprises people who imagine these voyages. There is water, and there are blankets, and twice in every shift cycle the servitors come round the hold with something gray and warm in dented tin bowls. And it is not good, but there is enough of it. Nobody is beaten. Nobody is chained to a wall. There are no guards standing over you with shock mauls, because there is no need for any. Because where exactly would you go? You are cargo. Cargo is looked after. Cargo is kept at a reasonable temperature and fed on a schedule, and counted twice a day against a manifest. And if the number in the second column comes up short of the number in the first, somebody writes a brief report about wastage. There is something in being handled carefully by people who do not think of you as a person at all that is very much worse than cruelty would have been. And it takes most people about a week to understand that, and then they stop asking to see whoever is in charge. You learn the crew by their footsteps long before you ever see a face. They do not speak to you. They are not permitted to, and by the look of them, they would not want to. Crewing a black ship is held to be one of the hardest duties anywhere in the Imperium, and not because of anything the cargo might do, and not because of danger, and not because of the hours. It is because of what comes out of a hold like this one and goes straight through the bulkheads. Thousands of frightened minds pressed together in the dark, every one of them broadcasting the same thing all the time, without meaning to and without any way of stopping. Despair, leaking up through the deck plating into every compartment on the ship, hour after hour, year after year. The suppression fields hold the power down. They do not hold that down. Nothing does. Only certain people can stand it, and the Imperium selects them with great care and replaces them often. The ones who last are not the strongest, and they are not the cruelest, whatever the stories say. They are simply the ones whose minds happen to be shaped in some way that lets all of that wash across them without sticking. Nobody knows how to test for it reliably. They find out by trying. Months from now you will pass one of them in a service passageway, close enough to touch. A man of perhaps 50 with gray in his beard and a ledger under one arm. And he will glance at you and away again in the way people do, and you will see what is in his face in that half a second. And you will carry on walking, and you will feel something you had absolutely not expected to feel anywhere on this ship, which is pity. For him, it will confuse you for days. Then the ship translates. There is no adequate word for what that is like, and everyone who tries reaches for a different, wrong one. The engines change their pitch, dropping through a note that you feel in your back teeth. Something in the deck goes wrong in a direction you have no name for, and for one long moment, every person in that hold understands with a certainty that has nothing to do with thinking that they are somewhere which is not a place. Some people scream, most do not. It passes in a few seconds and leaves behind a kind of nausea that has nothing to do with the stomach. And then it is over, and the ship is in the warp, and on the other side of that hull is an ocean that is not made of water and does not obey any of the rules you grew up with. And the ship is swimming through it toward Holy Terra, inside a bubble of ordinary reality that a machine somewhere below you is holding shut. The voyage takes a long time. Nobody will tell you how long, partly because nobody has decided to be kind about it, and partly because in the warp the question does not entirely mean anything. Weeks, months, considerably longer on the routes in from the far edges of the Imperium, where a ship might spend a year and a half in transit and arrive to find that 8 years have passed outside, or 4 months, or a decade. There are no windows anywhere in the hold. There is no day and no night. There is only the lighting going down to its dim setting and coming back up again, over and over. And after a while, that is the only clock that anybody has. People count the cycles at first. Everyone does it. And then, one by one, they stop, because the counting turns out to make it worse rather than better, and the number gets big enough to frighten you, and there is a particular quiet afternoon on which you decide you are not going to keep the tally anymore, and you scratch through it and never start again. Some do not arrive. This is simply true, and there is no gentle way to carry it. So I will put it down plainly, and then we will move on. Some die of despair quietly in their sleep, having decided at some point along the way to stop, and they are found in the morning and taken out without any fuss. Some are consumed by whatever is inside them, even through the suppression fields, because the fields are very good, but they are not perfect, and some people burn too hot to be held down. And a very small number are taken away by the ship's witch hunters in the night, because something has begun to look out through their eyes that is not them, and everybody in that corner of the hold has known it for days. Those ones do not come back, and nobody asks about them, and the space where they were sitting stays empty for a while, and then quietly gets used by somebody else. And yet people are people, even here, even now, even knowing. Somebody starts singing on about the 40th cycle, a work song from an agri-world nobody else has heard of, and by the 50th there are 300 voices in it, and half of them do not know the words and sing anyway. Somebody teaches a card game with a deck that has 4 cards missing, and the missing cards become part of the rules, and the game gets passed to a different corner of the hold and comes back a month later with the rules changed. 2 people who do not share a single word of language sit together for every shift for 8 straight months, and are, by any measure that actually matters, close friends by the end of it. A man who was a teacher starts teaching because he does not know what else to do with his hands. Nobody organizes any of this. There is no committee. It simply happens because it is what people do. In every hold, on every ship, on every route back to Terra. And it has been happening in exactly this way for 100 centuries. You change across those months. Everybody does. Terror cannot hold at that pitch forever. It is not built to. And what comes in to replace it is not acceptance exactly, and it is certainly not peace. It is something quieter and stranger than either. You sleep well some nights, properly well, better than you slept at home. You catch yourself laughing at something and the sound genuinely shocks you. You develop preferences about where you sit. The hold becomes horribly ordinary. And the ordinariness is the most efficient thing about the whole arrangement. That is how the Imperium moves something close to 1 million people a year to the place where most of them are going to end, not by breaking them, not by chaining them, by giving them long enough in reasonable conditions with enough food and a blanket each to simply get used to it. And then one shift, the engines change their pitch again, and the deck goes wrong again in the other direction, and the ship comes out of the warp, and the word goes through 3,000 people in about 4 minutes flat, without anybody announcing anything. Sol. You are in the Sol system, the oldest system there is, the one that all of it started from, the one at the end of every prayer you have ever mumbled at the end of a shift, without ever really believing it was an actual place with an actual sun that things orbit. There is a strange lightening in the hold. People tidy themselves up. Somebody insists on washing. It makes no sense at all, and everybody does it anyway. They let you see it. That is the strangest mercy in the whole journey, and nobody has ever satisfactorily explained why it is done. On the final approach, the blast shutters come up along one entire wall of the hold, all at once, and 3,000 people who are about to die crowd forward against the armor glass to look at Holy Terra, and nobody stops them. No order comes down to clear the viewports. Nobody hurries anybody along. They are given as long as the approach takes, which is several hours, and the crew leave them to it, and some of those people stand there without moving for the entire time. It is not beautiful. You had assumed it would be. Every image you have ever seen of it was gold, and every hymn you were taught called it radiant. And what is actually there is a world that has been completely and utterly used, built over from pole to pole. Every ocean drained down to a dark stain in a basin. Every mountain range carved out and turned into buildings. Then the buildings built over. Then those built over in turn. For 10,000 years, until the whole planet is one continuous structure with a skin of spires on it. It glitters in the dark like something metal that was left out in the rain for 100 centuries. It is the single most important object in the galaxy, and it looks exhausted. And still, when you finally see it with your own eyes, something in your chest goes tight and does not loosen, because some part of you has been walking toward this place your entire life without ever being told that it was. Dozens of black ships make this same arrival every single solar day. Not every month, not every week, dozens every day, coming in from every direction at once and queuing for berths at the orbital docks like freighters at a grain port. You are one hold on one ship in one docking cycle. While you are shuffling toward the ramp, there are other holds opening on other ships all around the curve of the planet. Thousands of people walking down thousands of ramps. And this has been going on without a single day's interruption for 10,000 years. The scale of it is the thing that finally gets through to people, not the cruelty, the paperwork. The sorting happens in a hall so large that it has weather inside it. Pale mist gathers up among the roof vaults, hundreds of meters over your head, and drifts. There are birds living in there. You stand in a line that takes 11 hours to move from one end of the floor to the other, and the line is orderly, and there are attendants who bring water along it at intervals, and by hour 6, people are sitting down on the rockcrete where they stand and shuffling forward on their backsides. At the far end, there are men in gray robes at plain metal tables, exactly the same as the man on your world. The same robes, the same patience, the same unhurried courtesy. One of them looks up at you and looks at you properly for a moment and makes a decision that takes him somewhere around 9 seconds. A few people are pulled out of the line. It is not many. Some of them will be trained and sanctioned and sent back out into the Imperium to serve as battlefield psykers or diviners or 100 other things, watched and guarded and distrusted for the rest of their lives, but alive and doing work and free in most of the ways that matter to a person day to day. Some have the particular strength required for the soul binding and will be blinded by that ritual and given something else in exchange, and will spend the next several centuries whispering messages between the stars for an Imperium that could not hold together for a month without them. And a very small number have something rarer again and are led away down corridors that nobody else in that hall is permitted to walk down. And what becomes of those people is not written anywhere you will ever be able to read. 90 in every 100 are not pulled out of the line. That is the number. And it is not a rumor or an exaggeration. It is roughly what the ledgers say. 9 out of every 10 of the people you traveled with. 9 out of 10 of the 300 who were singing on the 40th cycle. The man who taught the card game. The teacher. The 2 friends who never learned each other's languages and did not need to. 9 out of 10 on this ship and on the one berthed alongside it and on every ship that docks tomorrow. And you are one of them. And the strangest part of the entire journey is that when it happens, you find you already knew and had known for months, and that knowing it does not feel remotely the way you always assumed it was going to feel. The last walk is quiet. There is no ceremony. Nobody gives a speech, and no priest walks along the line explaining what any of it means or promising anything about afterwards. There is just a corridor, wide enough for 6 people abreast, and a great many people walking along it slowly, and the sound of feet on stone, and somebody near the back coughing. Some are praying, some are holding hands with a stranger. A surprising number are perfectly calm, and the calm is not resignation, and there is no good word for what it is instead. Somewhere ahead of you, the corridor begins to get brighter, not harshly and not suddenly. It brightens the way a room brightens when somebody opens a curtain in the morning while you are still mostly asleep, and you turn your face toward it without deciding to. 1,000 of you are given to him every single solar day. That is what the number means, and it is worth sitting with for a moment. Not 1,000 once at some founding ceremony in the distant past, 1,000 today, 1,000 again tomorrow, and 1,000 the day after that, and 1,000 on every day between now and whenever this finally ends, so that the Emperor of mankind, on his golden throne in the dark, can hold open the one light that every ship in the galaxy steers by. He has been doing it for 10,000 years without a single hour of rest, and he cannot do it alone, and this is what alone would cost. Nobody has ever found another way. That is not propaganda. They have genuinely looked for 100 centuries, and this is the best anybody has managed. And what happens to you at the very end of it, nobody knows. Not really. Not the men in the gray robes with their ledgers, not the tech priests who service the apparatus and have serviced it for 9,000 years, not the scholars who have written entire libraries on the question in 100 languages. Whether anything of a person continues, in any form at all, inside that light. Whether it is an ending, or a becoming, or something there is no word for in any language humanity still speaks. It is the one question the whole Imperium cannot answer about itself, and after 10,000 years of asking it, most of them have quietly stopped asking. I cannot tell you either. I would if I could. That is where the honest account of it runs out. But here is what is certain, and I want to leave you with this rather than with the other thing. Out there tonight, a very long way from Terra, there is a ship crossing the warp with 8,000 people asleep in its bunks. Families, crew off shift, somebody's grandmother, and up at the top of the hull, alone in a blister of armor glass, its navigator is sitting with her third eye open, looking out into an ocean that would drive you insane in about 9 seconds, and she is steering by a light. That light is steady. It has been steady for her entire career. It was steady through her mother's career before her, and through the career of the navigator who taught her mother, and back and back and back for as long as anybody has been keeping records. She has no idea whose light it is. It would never once occur to her to wonder, any more than you wonder about the sun. It is simply the light. It is the fixed thing, the one reliable point in a universe that is not reliable about anything else. And she turns her ship a quarter of a degree toward it, and 8,000 sleeping people arrive safely at a world they have never seen, and wake up and complain about the food and get on with their lives. That happens tonight. It happens 100,000 times tonight, all across the galaxy, in the dark, while everybody sleeps and nobody thinks about it at all. So that is the story of the ship that came for the ones like you. It is not a kind story, and I have not tried to make it into one, because it is not mine to soften, and you did not ask me to. But the light is real. It is still burning tonight, and somewhere out in all of that dark, a navigator you will never meet is bringing 8,000 strangers home by it right now, this minute, while you lie here. Let that be the last thing you hold, not the corridor. The light is steady, the ships are coming home, and you are here, warm and safe, and about as far away from all of it as anyone has ever been. Sleep well.